the pommel horse is quite a unique piece of apparatus. It doesn't have too many similarities with any of the other gymnastics apparatus, but it is great fun and quite easy for many young boys to begin to get to grips with. It involves the majority of its work supporting on the hands, which is quite a strange thing, and we have to do a lot of conditioning for that. The easy part of pommel horse is that essentially there's only one element to learn. Here it is. Conditioning for pommel horse and double leg circles is a long, hard road, and it needs to be taught in every area of the gym. The warm-up is a good place to do conditioning to prepare the muscles of the upper body and especially the support strength of the wrist to be able to cope with a massive loading of doing a full pommel horse exercise. The following exercises are just some of thousands of exercises that you can find that can actually involve and enhance conditioning strength in the upper body. First one would just simply be bunny hops. Anything that takes the weight on the hands. Same sort of exercise but moving from side to side. The idea of transferring weight from one side of the body to the other is essential. Taking weight on your hands. The next exercise can simply be to walk forwards, dragging the feet, ensuring that the gymnast has socks on to avoid carpet burns, and just to be able to pull the floor in front of them and get to the other end. The same can be done in back support, keeping the hips held high, pressing against the floor, dragging the feet with socks on, which is similar to the actions needed for moving up and down the pommel horse. It's important to develop good shoulder strength and to understand the range of movement in the shoulders for pommels. Transferring weight from one arm to the other often comes from this action. The gymnast should never bend their arms on pommel horse, and the movement will come from the action you see with the boys, pushing from the shoulders, utilising the movement in the shoulder girdle from a low position to a high position, transferring weight from arm to arm. So we can do the same exercise in back support, again trying to lift the neck up and down without actually spoiling the shape in the hips, everything from the armpits, full stretch, and again transferring weight from side to side whilst keeping the tension of the body. All of these exercises can be incorporated as part of specific conditioning or in a basic warm-up. There are 4 positions in pommel horse to teach a double leg circle. The first one is front support. The hips should be held a little bit low, the back should be flat, and the shoulders should be lifted up rather than sunk down. Can you just sink in your shoulder, Max? So this is a poor position. This one, where the shoulders are pressed up, is a little bit better to increase the range over the pommel handle. Side support. Again, the hips should be pushed forwards, no piking, and all the weight over one arm pushing upwards rather than sinking in the shoulder. Back support. With the hips held high, a good high shoulder support and the other side support. Trying to avoid piking at all times. The straighter the body, the better the amplitude of the circle. Quite a difficult exercise is to be able to push the shoulders and extend in side support on one arm. But again, this can be useful conditioning for double leg circles. Any exercise that involves pushing from the hands will have relevance for handsprings, pommel horse, parallel bars, and support strength. Being able to transfer weight is important from front support to back support and back to front support without breaking shape. The body should be long and extended with the back flat in the right position. One more time, boys, a little bit faster, and back fast. Many repetitions of these exercises will start to develop the necessary strength. So at some point, the gymnast will have to make a decision as to which way they'll do a double leg circle. The general principle is that if a gymnast twists to the left, then the circle will go anti-clockwise. If the gymnast twists to the right, the circle will go clockwise. So assuming they know which way they twist, you should be able to develop the double leg circle. Most gymnasts twist to the left and should circle left. If you're not sure which way your gymnast twists, then you have to go through many checks to find out the best way for them to twist. Needless to say, it's very important that all twisting should be in the same direction, and it's helpful if the double leg circles follow that method too. Once you've identified which way the gymnast is going to circle, you can begin on the floor area with their hands on a line as a means of visual information, they can start walking around a quarter of a circle, keeping their body as straight and extended as possible, stopping inside support, continuing with small steps round to back support, keeping the hands in the same place. You can draw hand marks on the floor or use a line. Three-quarter circle to the other side, making sure the hips stay straight and facing forwards. And then hand down to do the last part. Many, many repetitions of that without breaking body shape. Once the gymnast has an understanding of which way they're going to circle and the basic shapes required, you can show the start position, which is front support, a small step across with one foot, keeping the hips held low and trying to keep the hands on the floor, then a quarter circle to finish inside support. If you can do that once more, guys. And the important thing here is to think about the bottom hip, the lower leg, leading the circle. And one more. So as you press, the left arm pushes in the opposite direction and the lower hip pushes underneath. It's important in these progressions to make sure the gymnast is wearing socks to avoid carpet burns. A slippery surface, a floor, is quite useful as well. So from front support, small step across and half circle to finish in back support. And the same again, the coach should be watching to make sure that there's no piking action and that the lower hip is leading the circle. The shoulders should be square at all times with the hands remaining in the same position. One more time. And after many weeks of practice, the boys should be able to extend that further to make three-quarters of a double leg circle until they're almost touching in back support. Yes, good. And then finally, a full circle back round to front support. Good. The important coaching points as the gymnast perform the double leg circles are to make sure that the shoulders stay square, that the hands stay in the same position, and that the hips are facing forward. In the first half of the circle, the lower hip should lead, and in the second half of the circle again, the lower hip should lead. The body should remain straight throughout. And ideally, the feet should stop dragging on the floor as the gymnast gets enough speed to circle round. When the gymnast comes to the mushroom, the next piece of apparatus from the floor, he can start in a front support position with the body straight, the back flat, and initiate the circle with the lower hip, in this case his left hip, leading the circle. He should then think about pushing his hips forward, walking round, and getting his hand down as quickly as he can to back support, showing that good high position. The second part of the circle, he should lead with his right hip going under to create that slight arch and acceleration of the heels leading the swing to finish round in back support. Can you just walk round on the floor, Max, now? Just showing those positions. Just walk round slowly, little steps. A useful exercise initially is just to get the gymnast to understand walking around the mushroom with his hips in the right position and the pushing sideways of the hands to facilitate that action. If the gymnast has practiced the shapes on floor, he can then move to the mushroom and try to make a half or three-quarter double leg circle, again keeping the hips open and facing forwards. The hands should stay in the same place, and it's quite useful to sometimes put marks on the mushroom to make sure your hands return to the same position. Once the gymnast can make half or three-quarters of a circle with a little more swing of the heels, they should be able to get all the way round. Off you go, have a try. I must stress that from back support to front support, it's the heels that lead the swing and not the hips. So there should be no piking in this action. From back support, swing the heels round to front support. One more time. This first progression can take many months to actually teach a gymnast one circle or two circles, but once it's been taught, then it's a case of just repetition and endurance to quickly get to 50, 60, 70, even 100 circles on the mushroom in one go. A long process to initiate the first few double leg circles, but once it can be done, the gymnast can perform multiple repetitions of double leg circles, 10, 15, 20, and they must spend a lot of time simply doing these circles in different areas. The craft of the coach is to make this interesting, to do different situations, different setups, different progressions, different areas, and have competitions to motivate the gymnast to want to do pommel horse. Once the gymnast understands the basic double leg circle, moving up and down the horse and turning the body is relatively easy. Once the gymnast has an understanding of the basic double leg circle, we can try to enhance the amplitude of the circle by getting the gymnast to circle over an object, like in this case, one handle. Here Max has no choice but to extend his hips and stretch the circle out to avoid hitting the handle. One of the beauties of pommel horse is that it's essentially easier for a younger gymnast than for a fully mature gymnast. Circling one handle, for example, is rewarded very highly in the code of points, but it's very easy for gymnasts that can do a basic double leg circle, even from as young as 8, 9, 10 years old. The main principle is if you circle to the left, as Cameron does, your first hand should touch the handle in overgrasp and your second hand should be in undergrasp to provide a resistance of the hands working against each other. With your first hand in overgrasp and your other hand in undergrasp, you should be able to make a double leg circle. This can be taught safely in tandem with the gymnast learning double leg circles on the low mushroom. One more time, Cam. Again, the shape for the circle is learned and shouldn't change at all. The body should be extended, stretched out. The faster the gymnast can go, the more amplitude in the circle. The gymnast may now have spent many months perfecting a basic double leg circle on the floor and on the mushroom. Once he has that circle, the next step is to take that circle to any area of the horse. And when he can master the circle in every part of the horse, he can truly begin to develop advanced pommel horse work. The first stage could be circling inwards on a low horse with the handles taken out. Principle's the same, the body should be extended. Important to note here that the hands should be parallel. Here you see Max has got his left hand a little in front. The hands should remain side by side with the body stretched. Working on a low-level horse can often be a lot more difficult than working on a high horse. Removing the handles does make it a little bit easier for the gymnast to prepare to circle over the handles. So the first step would be on a low horse without handles in all areas, and then we can start putting obstacles in for the gymnast to try to circle over. Here Cameron will show you some outward loops, slightly more difficult than the inward facing loops, but the principle of the circle is the same as was taught on the mushroom. Hands should remain parallel, body square with the shoulders facing forward, and a good speed. One of the more difficult areas is to circle in the centre of the horse, because here the gymnast has to provide amplitude in both front and back support. But with practice, on a low mushroom and on the floor, the gymnast should be able to complete this skill. It's important to develop amplitude in side support as well as front and back support, and these circles are quite difficult but very necessary in modern day pommel horse. Circling in side support, keeping the body straight at one end of the horse and at the other end of the horse to develop both sides of the circle. Thank you, Max. And the most difficult area in the centre of the horse. You can see the shape's breaking down a little bit for Cameron, slight piking. It's better to keep the body straight and extended in every phase of the circle. It takes many months of clever coaching sessions to be able to get your gymnast to perform circles with amplitude in all areas. It can be a monotonous affair, but using games, using circuits and different stations on the pommel horse where the gymnast has to do numerous repetitions will quickly enhance the circle to be able to perform close to working with the handles. Once the gymnast can work on a low horse in all areas, then you can start putting mats down as seen here to increase the amplitude further. This makes it quite safe. If Max was to hit his feet, it's far more forgiving than a wooden pommel handle. And we can look in outward loops and in all other areas, raising the level of the mats to raise the level of the circle. After many months of practice, the gymnast can be ready to work on the high horse. I wouldn't advocate small gymnasts working between the handles, or on the handles, should I say, because often the shoulder width is too small, and for the gymnast to make a big weight transference on wide adult-sized handles can be difficult. But at this age, they're ready to begin. Keep the circle extended. Good, and Cameron, try to show a high support position so that your neck doesn't disappear into your shoulders. You're pressing high on the handles. Extend, turn your hips towards me. Now. Okay.